It's very unique for anybody to be able to play golf and be able to shoot the range 3 times. Well, anyway, that's the story of David. And it's on that basis, David, I'm going to turn the floor over to anybody else who would like to say something. Oh, one last thing I forgot. This is very important. I can't believe I missed this. Aside from that, David likes to sing.
Whoa.
David loved to sing. And I can recall several times I used to go to his house, and David would invite us over, and he'd cook with chili con carne. He made a famous dish of chili con carne. And he'd invite us over, and we'd get over there and play, and then we'd drink copious quantities of wine. And then he had a piano there, and I'd get on the piano, and we would sing for a good hour. All the old songs, you see. And so today, that's why we brought the songs. We're going to sing a few songs going back to the days when he was in the Army, and we played a few songs after that, okay? Now, having said that, is there anyone here who would like to get up and say something about dear old David?
I got a couple of anecdotes.
Go ahead.
About 20 years ago, in the seniors doubles club tennis championships. Senior in those days was 50.
You have to keep your voice up because he's going to have trouble hearing you.
Perfect. Oh, yeah.
David, can you hear?
I'm talking about the senior doubles tennis.
Yeah.
20 years ago. So Jeff and David were partners. And Dave Mason, I don't know if anybody, you guys know him, and I were playing as well. So we got a bye in the first round. And in the second round, we won by default because the other team didn't show up. So that put us in the finals against David and Jeff. And they cleaned their clocks. They won the championship. And they bragged about it for at least 15 years after that. Anyway, so I remember that. And the other little tidbit that I always thought was interesting was that in the early days of tennis, the origins of tennis, we're at Hampton Court, Henry VIII's Hampton Court, and they had the first tennis court there where you'd bounce it off the walls and the backboards and all that sort of thing. And David played tennis on those courts back in the times of Henry VIII. Which I always thought was interesting. We visited there, we went and saw the courts a few years ago, and thought that was quite an interesting anecdote.
Jeez. I'd like to address another aspect of David's prodigious abilities. I'm one of the few non-tennis players at the table today, and I only got to know David playing golf. And he had a dear friend by the name of Jimmy Main, and they both were very kind to me when I joined this club. And the one thing I can't testify to his tennis skills, his squash skills. I can testify to his golfing skills because when the four of us used to annually go up to Barrie to play, and we always played for money, I don't think it ever cost me more than $5. But the fact was that it was acknowledged that David was the best of the four of us when it came to playing golf. But that aside, I think that the reason for this lunch, David, is because all of us have always felt that you were a very fine gentleman.
Oh, well,
Here. And that you impressed us as such. And I think that we can all aspire to the kind of conduct that you have displayed over the many years that you've been a member of this club and a friend of the people who are here today.
Well, that's very good.
Well, that's very nice. However, Herbie, I have to point out that you weren't quite accurate.
I figured as much.
Okay. One point specifically is that Jeff was the best golfer in our group when we played at Barrie, not David. Okay.
However, David, no matter, of course, David was at one time a 7 handicap. How low did you get?
I only got to 14.
You got to 14, but the time we were playing, we were above that. But anyway, the point is that Jeff may want to tell the table about how much money David took off Jeff over the many years. Okay?
Yeah, that's between them.
And when I called up Jeff, and I said, Jeff, would you like to come and pay tribute to David? He says, why? He said, you know how much that son of a bitch cost me over the years? But in any event, I finally twisted his arm. He said, okay, I'll come. So there you are. But there was a story I was going to mention. You're talking about an alleged girlfriend, Ronnie.
Oh, yeah.
Well, anyway, David, of course, also loved to travel. And David and Nara traveled all over the world. They went all kinds of places. And in the end, when Nara died, a couple of years later, David started taking these cruises, okay? And this is going back 4 or 5 years ago. And he's on this one cruise, and he meets a very attractive American female. And as it turns out, she really fell over heels for him. Anyway, she ends up going back to the United States, and as it turns out, she runs into a couple of her friends from Canada. And she tells these Canadians how wonderful David was. See? As it turns out, those Canadians were members of Bayview.
No. Really?
Right. So before David got back, the whole bloody club knew about this alleged affair. Right? And we kidded David for years, but actually David then took it to heart. He realized he's vulnerable now. So after that, he used to go on a trip every year, and he'd take one of his sons with him.
Yeah.
And one of his sons would have to protect him from all the women that, But anyway, I always recalled that.
Thank you.
Wait a minute, David. It's not your turn yet. There are other people who want to say something about you. Okay? I think I've known you the longest, okay? I played golf as your partner, right? I played squash with you. I played tennis with you. I lived next to you for 8 years.
Oh, really?
Whoa.
Yeah, that's right. So I think I know him the longest. And first of all, I want to tell you, I do not believe that he's hard of hearing. I mean, just between us and the group, I think that's selective auditory problem that he has, but he really doesn't have a problem. He hears what he wants to hear, but that's my opinion.
I'm starting to think, I think I kind of believe you.
Yeah, okay. But the story I'd like to tell you, and it's true story, people don't realize that David has a terrible memory, okay?
Really?
No, I know you don't believe this, and he was successful in business, that's true. For example, way back when Nara was his secretary, okay, he'd call home and say something like, Nara, what hotel am I going to in Chicago? I'm here. I don't know where I'm supposed to go. This was a problem for him all through his life. So I don't know how he was successful. Anyhow, the story I want to tell you is, and this is a true story, David and Nara, many years ago, asked me and my late wife Charlotte if we'd like to go to midnight mass. And I thought, what a great idea for my kids to learn about, the Catholic Church and not be afraid to go into someone's place of worship. And so we said yes, and we went. And everything went along fine in the service. And then there comes a certain time in the service that you all know that you have to kneel. Out of respect, I had no problem, and I'm kneeling next to David. And David looks at me and he goes, yeah, David, what? And we're kneeling. I can't get down because I'd never be able to get up. He goes like this. I said, what? He says, you got any checks on you? I said, yeah. He says, can you cover $5,000? Now, this is a true story, okay? First thing goes through my head is I read somewhere where you're supposed to give 10% of your salary, and I'm a young kid. I'm much younger than he is, okay? And I'm saying, $5,000? Well, I got a Gustin Kramer check, and I got a regular check. Well, I'm not going to be able to cover $5,000. So I'll use a Guston Kramer check. So I said, yes, David. He says, all right, make it out for $5,000 and give it to me. I had a pen, I made it out, okay, gave it to him. The collection plate comes by, he puts it in the collection plate, okay, and that was the end. Of course, he forgot to pay me, okay, and I have to admit I forgot to ask him for it.
Wow, maybe you both got bad memories.
Yeah, that could be. 2 months later, my partner calls me, he says, Jeff, come in my office for a second. He says, I thought you and I agreed that we were going to sit down and do charities together. And here is a $5,000 check to some Catholic church. I don't understand. And I told him, then I remembered. I told David to pay off. He did pay off. But I remember that story. It's one of my warm stories that I can remember. I remember that so well. And I admire you for your generosity, even though you did have a bad memory.
Hold it, you're trying to tell us that he gave $5,000 to the church, okay?
Yeah.
You weren't with David that day.
The church, he's very generous.
Doesn't he?
Yeah. Now, other people, no, but to the church.
Oh.
Yeah, church, yeah.
He didn't get you to convert though, right?
Huh? He didn't get me to convert, no. No.
Not at that rate.
You should have at least got a bond, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's right. You're right.
Okay, I guess,
Well, let me see,
David seems to have a piece of paper beside him.
I have
with
a
some
question
writing
for
on it. I
David.
think he has something to say.
I would like to know when you started to play squash. Was it in Canada or was it earlier?
In England.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Because you played with the armed forces, didn't you?
There I played with them too. Yeah. Long time ago. Okay, I have to use this kind of thing because at my age, my memory is not that good.
Yes, that's what you're told.
Read it.
Your hearing is perfect.
Kurt wrote a $5,000 check for you, David. Did you know that? Okay, well, good afternoon, gentlemen. Thank you for remaining seated while you hear the ramblings of an aging member. Well, before I introduce, maybe you introduce the tennis courts, I was a member at Mayfair Tennis Club, where I played a couple of times a week with my then neighbor, Jeff Guston. I also played squash there, but with people other than Jeff, because in those days, Jeff didn't play squash. He later got to be a pretty good squash player. Well, with the introduction of Bayview's tennis courts, I joined the tennis section, but continued my membership at Mayfair mainly because of the squash, which I played there 3 times a week, mainly at lunchtimes. The fact is that I could fit my squash game of 40 minutes into my lunchtime from the office and get a better workout than I would in a regular tennis match, which took much longer.
Especially if you're playing Jeff.
Yeah.
Well, after 2 or 3 years of membership of Bayview's tennis section, I was elected to the club's tennis director, to be the club's tennis director. And that started a 3-year term as a member of Bayview Golf and Country Club's board of directors. And that was an interesting time. During that period, the club sold the part of its property that bordered on Steeles Avenue and organized a restructuring of the course to replace the holes it had lost in the process. So while that work took place, Bayview was a 15-hole golf course for a whole season, not easily accepted by the golf members. But it turned out to be an excellent move that both made the course more interesting and solved the financial problems that the club had been facing. For my final year on the board, which was 1986, I was elected president of the club, which was an interesting experience, but that's for another day. During all this time, golf was an important part of my activity at the club.
One of my more notable achievements in those days was to win the club's primary golf tournament of the year, the 3-day Bayview Men's Invitational, with my partner Jim Beasley. A lot of contestants' money goes into that tournament in bets. And if I remember correctly, my partner and I won a total of $2,500 each that day.
Wow.
Well, enough about golf. Now, back in those days, we had an outstanding tennis pro. What was his name? The guy who went down and opened a restaurant in Bayview.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Oh, Ross Matheson.
Ross Matheson.
Matheson.
Ross Matheson, yeah.
Yeah, we had an outstanding tennis pro, Ross Matheson, who ran an enthusiastic and involved tennis section. Every year, he would bring over an assistant from England, who was not just a good player, but a really good-looking guy, whom, not surprisingly, he assigned to look after the ladies. And he did.
What does that mean?
His
As a sidebar to the story, I should mention that in those days, the social side of tennis was very active. Every evening after tennis ended, a significant group would walk off the courts to socialize in the bar and to sip their post-tennis margaritas.
You did it right.
Now, the making of a margarita requires coating the edge of the glass with salt that finishes on your tongue as you sip the drink. Well, it became the custom that the lady partner would sit down and while seated would raise her skirt and arrange little islands of salt on her now exposed thighs. A male partner would then lick the salt off her thighs between sips of her margarita. In those days, a number of entertaining evenings were enhanced in that way.
And Robbie was the guy that did all the licking. That was the assistant pro from England, yeah.
Well, after several years of managing the tennis section, Ross Matheson left Bayview to open a restaurant in Markham, which turned out to be a great financial success. But that's another story. In time, I participated in a doubles foursome that played a couple of times a week at 8 o'clock in the morning. Eventually, we joined Keith's Tuesday and Thursday group, and I'm happy to see that this still goes along, active as ever. For my part in this, I want to thank Keith for doing a wonderful job, not only for organizing the tennis, but also for enabling the creation of the social scene that followed the tennis, where we solved the world's problems in the dining room.
Yeah, here.
I'm happy to see that continues to be part of the Tuesday and Thursday tennis scene at Bayview.
We haven't solved any problems there.
How do you know? You weren't here all day.
Well, gentlemen, it's time to end this talk. I'd like to close by saying, long may the Tuesday and Thursday tennis continue. Cheers.
Cheers.
So what's your secret to those longevity? What's your secret?
It's a secret that I'm not going to let you guys.
Have you seen his emails?
You haven't.
Have you seen his emails?
No.
Oh,
Oh, he doesn't email.
no, he does.
Oh, he does.
He digs up these things on the internet and he sends them around. Usually they're two big round things.
Oh.
Oh,
What's that?
it's a secret lunch at one.
Yeah.
Do they have a couple of points?
I guess if you told us a secret, it wouldn't be a secret anymore.
Nobody's talked about his fascination with breasts.
Oh, really?
No.
Maybe that's a secret.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, they say, Ron, that the secret to longevity is to play tennis.
Oh.
It requires physical activity,
Yeah.
it requires mental thinking for strategy, and it's also makes for good friends and social.
Very good.
And therefore, that's maybe David's secret to success.
Yeah, could be.
So hopefully, we can follow his image and do the same thing and live and enjoy as long as he has.
Well,
Sure.
David told me that his secret is drinking good booze.
Did you say drinking good booze?
Yes.
I recently attended a birthday party of a friend of mine who turned 100. And he made a speech at his party before probably 100 people. And he said, on so many occasions I'm asked, what's the secret of my longevity? And he said, well, I've now reached the age where I can be honest and tell everybody what it is. It's sex and good liquor.
In that order?
Not tennis, not tennis.
Simultaneously.
No, because in my case, it's booze and then sex. That's the only way she'd ever have sex with me.
Not
LGBT.
Well, David, I want you to know that steps are already in motion for the celebration of your 100th birthday. So get ready. Organize yourself so that you'll be available to attend and to write a speech. You can't use the same speech because it'll be 10 years from today. And we will all be there.
Absolutely.
And we won't know the difference if he does use the same speech.
And David, I would strongly suggest that you don't give another $5,000 to the church. Put it aside and leave it towards this 100th birthday party that you're gonna
Be a grand party.
Yeah.
Good liquor.
Yeah. Well,
This month, I will have attended 3 birthday parties of people who have turned or are turning 90, and one person, as I mentioned, who has turned 100.
is that right?
That's the state that we're in.
So if we invite you to our birthday parties, that means we can live to 100?
Yeah.
I'm giving you encouragement to aspire to achieve that age.
Awesome.
It's possible.
I don't think too much of us need encouragement to live long.
Right.